All right, 7 o'clock, we'll call our meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Cody, would you do a roll call of the board, please?
Supervisor Milky,
I am here.
Clerk Cody is here, Treasurer Rice is excused, Trustee Bills,
Here.
Trustee Brown is excused, Trustee Hauk,
Here.
and Trustee Thering.
Here. Thank you much. Be happy to entertain any motions regarding the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion by Hauk, second by Bills, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Clerk. Motion was to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion to approve the agenda as presented passes unanimously. We have no formal presentations tonight, but typically this would be where we would hold an opportunity for our elected officials, not us, but other elected officials from the county to present. And I spoke to Commissioner Engler, and he said he's here, doesn't have anything specific to say, but if we had questions for him, feel free to call him up, and he'd be happy to try to field them. So I'm asking the question of this board, if you have any questions you want to address. He offered to come up. Thanks.
I'll save you the speech, so.
All right. Thank you. We have no public hearings tonight. That moves us to item 7 on our agenda, public comment. Public comment is restricted to 3 minutes regarding items on this agenda. Note, this is an opportunity for comments only. If you do approach the public or board to speak, please state your name and address for the record. And with that, we'll open up public comment at 7:02 p.m.
Good timing. You guys started early. Good evening, Ben Gunning, 2270 and 2280 East Broomfield Road. Several things that I thought I'd like to mention before we get into tonight's festivities. First of all, with the Lincoln Broomfield project, I was looking at it like really the 4-foot shoulders are essentially, for the most part, pseudo pathways. And so, in my mind, there's some areas like Broomfield and Lincoln in particular where it's going to be much easier to have a 4-foot shoulder than it is to try to put sidewalks and pathways in. So, looking at the future, that might be the best avenue. The EDA board from 11 to 9. My first question is was that discussed with the EDA board? Number 2, possibility of an attendance requirement. So people maybe feel it's more important to show up. That did work with the Planning Commission, if you remember. There was an attendance policy when I became supervisor, and that's one of the first things we did, was put in an attendance policy, and since then, no problems. I'm hoping that we can start using these board appointments to try to unify the community instead of continuing to create division, which I feel that we're on the path of doing, if not already there. And then lastly, relationship with the road commission. The two entities need each other. They need each other. They need the two to work together. We don't need to have snide comments during board meetings about either one from either side, which, to be frank with you, I didn't hear anything from the other side, but I did in this room. Because the citizens, well, all we want is we want good roads, right? We want safe, good roads. And a bad relationship is not going to be conducive to that. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment at 7:05 PM. We have no closed session tonight. We have report boards, comments, any appointments as needed. I guess we'll start with Construction Board of Review. This board did appoint two to fill the terms that started, I believe, January 1st, but we needed three. We had a new applicant for that, Mr. Schaefer. And I don't know Mr. Schaefer, but thankful that he applied, and I'm happy to entertain any motions with regards to the Construction Board of Review.
I don't know Mr. Schaefer personally, but I know of him through his relatives, and he seems like a stand-up guy, that's all I know.
I'll make a motion to appoint Joseph Schaefer for Construction Housing Board of Appeals.
I'll support it.
Motion by Cody, support by Hauk. Discussion? I'll just say again, I'm thankful that he applied, and certainly will have my support. Any more discussion? Motion to appoint Mr. Joseph Schaefer to the Construction Board of Appeals.
For a term ending 12/31/2023.
Thank you.
Oh.
Is you okay putting that on your motion?
Yes. what was
Trustee
the
Hauk,
date?
you okay with that
Yep.
amendment? Thank you for that reminder. Would you get us a roll call vote on that motion, please?
12/31/23 is what you said.
Yeah.
And I had that in my notes too, and I forgot to bring it up.
Okay, roll call. Supervisor Milky,
Yes.
Trustee Bills,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. All yes.
Awesome. Regarding Planning Commission, I did a lot of homework on this. Had to remind myself, despite serving for a long time, I wanted to look into this, and this is just informational that I thought is useful for all of us. PC, or Planning Commission, is given their authority and responsibility via the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act of 2006. And I was curious about the purpose of the Planning Commission as defined by the state law, and I'm going to just quote the paragraph that they had on that. It says, "A local unit of government may provide by zoning ordinance for the regulation of land development to ensure that the use of land is situated in appropriate locations and relationships to limit the inappropriate overcrowding of land and congestion of population, transportation systems, and other public facilities, to facilitate adequate and efficient provision for transportation systems, sewage disposal, water, energy, education, recreation, and other public service and facility requirements, and to promote public health, safety, and welfare." And also, I was looking at the act because I wanted to revisit my responsibility as supervisor. And so, having gone through that process, I plan on nominating four tonight to the Planning Commission. And I'm thrilled we have so many applicants. And despite the challenges we've had with COVID and trying to get persons to volunteer for in person, we had an abundance of applicants. And that's, I know Trustee House did a lot of recruiting, and I appreciate all the work you put into that.
Thank you.
So with that, just a reminder, I did spend a lot of time reaching out to almost all of the PC applicants. When I say PC, I mean Planning Commission. To get to know them and to interview them. I did speak with all but one of the existing planning commissioners with regard to get their opinion on what voices, perspectives, diversity we were missing on the existing planning commission. I also took input from a lot of you on this board. And while I had the mindset that we still need to find more women to serve on our boards, we did not receive any female applicants this time. So I would like to begin by reappointing two of the individuals that currently serve bring a lot of different perspective. They also bring, they're well-prepared, they do their work, they both have strong voices. I will do one at a time. I'm just indicating that I plan on nominating both those whose terms are ending that reapplied. And with that, I'd like to nominate Vice Chair Ryan Buckley to the Planning Commission, term ending February 15th, 2025.
I'll support it.
Discussion?
He does his homework.
I think he does a good job.
Yeah, he's vice chair and he's liaison to the ZBA, and I got to serve with both he and Doug on the Planning Commission, and they both do an awesome job. So if there's no further discussion, Clerk Cody, would you take a roll call on the motion to nominate or appoint Ryan Buckley to the Planning Commission?
Supervisor Milky,
Yes.
Trustee Bills,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. All yeses.
Thank you. As mentioned, I'd be happy to nominate Secretary Doug LaBelle to the Planning Commission, term ending February 15th, 2025.
Support.
Yep.
I'd like to.
You support?
Support, yes.
Yep. So motion support for Mr. LaBelle to the Planning Commission. Any discussion?
Again, I think he does a great job as
Yes.
well.
Yep.
Hey, You got to serve with both these
Yeah.
individuals as well.
He does his homework.
Yep. Any other discussion? Clerk Cody, would you give us a roll call on the motion to appoint Mr. LaBelle to the Planning Commission?
Supervisor Milky,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Trustee Bills,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
all yeses.
As I mentioned, I reached out and interviewed a lot of our applicants. I had to say it was great for me. It was a good journey. But with that, out of the ones that have applied, I came down to two that stood above and beyond for various reasons. And so with that, I want to ask the board's opinion on something before I make a nomination. I was thinking I would nominate both Paul Gross and Jack Williams to the Planning Commission. One of these terms is a partial term. And if this board has a preference on which one I nominate for the 3-year term versus a partial term, I'm open to input on that.
I don't have a preference.
I don't think either one of them would care.
Yeah, and I didn't know.
I've talked to
and-
them. I don't think either one would care. I think they just want to serve.
And we have to, yeah, I guess there's no.
I have to pick
no
one.
filling and then adding another term, because it's, okay.
Well,
I mean,
Understood.
How about this? Oh, go ahead.
I think Paul Gross, he has the background in ag.
correct.
I think he would be better with the longer term.
That's what
in
I
my
was just
opinion.
gonna say, because it's hard to get someone from ag.
Yeah.
I
Right.
tried many people
Yeah,
from
me too.
ag. And thank you, Lisa, I was gonna say the same thing.
That's Clerk Cody. Just saying.
Sorry. Clerk Cody, thank you.
I appreciate those comments. I had similar thoughts, but I wanted to get the thoughts of this board as well. So with that, unless there's objections from what comments were just made, I would like to nominate Paul Gross to the Planning Commission with a seat or term ending February 15th, 2025.
Support.
Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, Clerk Cody, would you do a roll call vote on the appointment of Paul Gross to the Planning Commission, term ending 2025?
Supervisor Milky.
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
Trustee Bills,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
and Clerk Cody, yes. All yeses.
Thank you. I will make a comment too on that. We've talked about the agricultural need perspective, and Trustee Hauk did mention he's worked pretty hard at that, and I spent the last year also trying that as well, so I appreciate Trustee Hauk's ability to rope him in. So thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Paul, you didn't hear that, did you?
I heard it. I mean, no, it's hard to get someone from agriculture. I called I called 4 people this year and spent a lot of time on the phone with them, visited with them. I really got on Paul a lot. Fortunately, we were working up at the county building, so he was right across the hallway, so it was kind of easy to talk to him a couple of times.
Well,
So,
thank you for your work.
Yeah.
With that, I'd be happy to nominate Jack Williams to the Planning Commission, term ending February 15th, 2023.
Support. I just wanted to.
Support by Cody. Discussion? Now, come on, I know some of you members know this gentleman,
Oh,
and
he's
you
doing
gave me your
excellent.
references for him. And as I said, I took input from this
Oh,
board
Jack.
as well, so.
I'm very excited. I can't wait to get rolling with some of with their current and new faces, so.
Jack will ask pretty intense questions. I mean,
Yep.
he was the facilities director for the Chippewa Hills Schools, and he recently retired. He just lives across the street, but he owns a gas station, party store in Barrington. He was on he was on the village council, but he'll get pretty intense. He'll do his homework too.
Yeah, I got that impression from my speaking with him. I really enjoyed my conversation with Jack, so.
And he told me that.
Did we take a vote on this yet?
No.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I'll add that Kim was another referral. She's known Jack and his family for a long time and gave positive feedback as well. Would you do a roll call vote on appointing Mr. Jack Williams to the Planning Commission, term ending February 15th, 2023?
Supervisor Milky,
Yes.
Trustee Bills,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. All yeses.
So with that, if you'll entertain me for one moment, Treasurer Rice was not able to be here tonight, and she asked me to read something on her behalf, and I felt it was best to wait until after we did what we just did. But her son was exposed to COVID yesterday, and so she felt it best not to bring anything in to us. But she did want to express her support, and I'm going to not read the whole thing because it's lengthy, but she was in support of all the planning commission appointments we just made. And so, thought you might like to hear that.
Thanks.
I did talk to Jeff Brown, and Jeff Brown told me the same thing.
Oh, good. All right. With that, let's go to board member reports. Trustee Hauk?
Went to a road commission meeting on the 24th of February. There's another one tomorrow morning. They bought a new truck, a tractor, it's a semi to haul V-bottom trailers and just say trailers to haul equipment. They're very hard to get. Being that parts are so hard to get, they had an opportunity, the blades that are on the bottoms of the trucks, they had an opportunity to buy a truckload of those at a great price, so they wound up buying more. They bought double the amount that they needed, so they have them in the future and it saves money. We talked about the Lincoln Road, or they talked about the Lincoln Road project. They had $1,250,000 budgeted for snow removal, and as of the 24th of February, they only had $50,000 left to use for the winter. It doesn't seem like we got a lot of snow, but there was a lot of ice.
Holy cow.
So they're already, I'm sure they're gonna have to go to their general fund and dip into that to cover for snow removal. And they were talking about how they have some new employees, how they've had their first long days. They worked a couple of 12-hour days, and then one day on 2/22/22, I don't know if that was a bad day or what, or bad luck, but 2/22/22, they worked a 17-hour day and got everything cleared off, so. Other than that, they have also approved part of a project that we're gonna be involved in on Mission Road. They approved 3/4 of a mile along with the village of Rosebush to go from the village of Rosebush 3/4 of a mile to the north. And then with Isabella Township, they approved a contract to go from like 1.25 miles, which would be from where Rosebush, the village of Rosebush ends to Vernon Road. And then they'll be looking forward to getting money from Vernon Township for the next 6 miles. So it'll go from roundabout Mount Pleasant to roundabout Clare. So, and then one fortunate thing with that, we don't have to participate in any of that. We're not, they didn't ask us for any money for that. I mean, the village of Rosebush, that 3/4 of a mile, it's costing them $77,000. So, we got lucky on that one. We need to thank Roger on that one.
You bet.
What's that?
You bet.
That's it.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, I was wondering if that snow removal cost includes the new higher salaries they've had to pay.
The what? Higher salaries?
Yeah, to
Oh,
recruit people.
The new hire,
You know, they had to hire some people.
Yeah. Well, they hired people, this was back in like October that they hired people.
Mhm.
So this is like the first long days that they've had to work. But they're always they're probably like everybody else. There's retirements, they've got a lot of older people.
Mhm.
So people are retiring and they're like everybody else. I mean, they've had people go there that, well, what do you mean I gotta work a long day? Well, they'll work a long day and then they don't come in the next day. So you lose your job.
I think part of your point maybe was that because of the higher rates they're having to pay these
Burning through their
truckers,
money.
that they may not have budgeted for that back when they did the budget. Any other
Well, I'm
questions?
not sure that, they had to pay higher wages. I mean,
I'm
the
pretty
wages
sure
were probably already figured in for the year in their budget.
they had to increase their recruitment efforts, as far as the director said at the intergovernmental meeting.
Oh. Well, I wasn't at that, so. didn't
Well, I
know.
was.
But I'm impressed that they were able to get the blades at such a good deal.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah.
you'd think
Well, they-
with supply and demand and certain,
Well, they just talk about how hard it is to get everything,
right.
which we all know that.
Clerk Cody? Trustee Bills?
I was really sick last week, but I was able to attend the Isabella County Board of Commissioners meeting virtually, and it was a very, very short meeting. The only thing I really noted was that they had the resignation of Mr. Stryeski from the Isabella County Transportation Commission, with regret. And other than that, it was pretty standard stuff. So that's all I've got.
Questions?
Was that guy the director?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know, was he the director?
He was for a time, yeah, he just wanted off, so.
Yeah.
So far, we've been lucky, most of our communities are full, but, for a while there, we were having trouble finding people.
Okay.
Trustee Thering?
I have nothing. Planning Commission meeting next week, so stay tuned.
Okay.
Yay.
And some new members.
Yes.
I have a bit here, so I'll try to keep it a little brief. Bear with me. Board of Review, we had our organizational meeting this Tuesday in the boardroom here. Just a reminder for the public, this is a PSA. Public hearings will occur for the Board of Review here Wednesday and Thursday of next week. That's March 16th and 17th from 1 p.m. until 7:30 p.m. Attended a 2% roundtable. Probably the highlight for me was really getting to converse with some of the new tribal members. They had an election in November, and it was nice to meet them and hear what their vision was. The opportunity to really cover some of the ideas that our staff and board has come up with regarding potential applications didn't really present itself in the way I'd hoped. But it was good discussion nonetheless, and the best part probably is being able to listen to these new members and where their passions are, what they want to see in their community. And the one thing that we spent a lot of time on this was pathways, and the city was at the table I was at, and so it ended up becoming a discussion with the city, the township, and the tribal members, council members, regarding pathway on Crawford and what the city's planning to do with connecting Island Park all the way up to the dog park, essentially, right? And wanting to continue that on, this is what the tribal members spoke to me about, the council members, is continuing that path up Crawford and across River over to Old Mission. And I was happy to say we've had those discussions, no commitment from this board at this point, but it's on our radar as a possibility, and that we've been talking with the city about that as well. The other part that they had interest in, and this actually played into one of the areas that we'll be applying for, which is Dennison Way, is connecting the pathways that Union Township has up to Deerfield Mission in there, all the way through into the city's network. And so I was able to bring up that we would be applying, that was one of our applications, would be for helping complete that pathway through that Dennison Way area. So those are the two highlights I heard from them, which these two particular council members obviously are supportive of pathways. So, all right, intergovernmental liaison team met on Monday. Both Clerk Cody and I were there. The county, tribe, and city all have representatives there. It was close to 2 hours, hour and a half, I'm thinking. All expressed the importance of these meetings, and there was an agreement to continue to meet on a quarterly basis, which was nice to hear. I was first on the agenda, shared the formation initial summary of our newly formed local sustainability group. Many of the members in attendance at that meeting have already been involved in that, but this was an opportunity to bring some more stakeholders to the table. And so there seemed to be interest in wanting to see where this could go. I'm just checking my notes, sorry. General support. Our manager gave an update on the Mid-Michigan Aquatic Authority. County gave updates on the new sheriff's complex. I asked the question of when do you hope to break ground, in case I get asked by one of our residents or businesses. And the response at this point, if all goes well, will be spring of 2023. Wow. There was also discussion on COVID and how each organization is adjusting to the current landscape. And I'd be happy, both our manager and our clerk were there. If I missed anything important, please jump in.
No.
All right. With that moves us to consent agenda. Happy to entertain any motions regarding the consent agenda.
I move to accept the consent agenda.
Support.
Motion by Bill, support by Hauk. Who had warrants? Jeff, right? I don't know.
I don't know.
I was last month, so I'm not sure.
I have him next month, so that's probably him. Was it Jeff? I'm not sure.
Do you happen to know if those were looked
You
at at
know,
all?
Sherry?
Nobody contacted me to sub.
No. It's the same as last year, so.
Yeah.
I'm
not
in
sure.
May. I don't
Yeah.
know.
It may have been Jeff.
May have been. I don't know the answer to that, so. Usually Kim will text me before our meetings to remind me who did the
It
warrants,
must
but
be, because if you said you're April and you're May, so March, because I just did February.
I mean, looking through the report, everything looks good.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I would agree too. So at least with our eyes,
The only thing I saw was that it seemed like we were paying a lot more for the surfaces this time.
Yeah, that's
around.
what I was gonna,
Yeah.
okay, if there's questions, I was
Yeah,
gonna ask that.
that's the only
too.
question I really had. I mean, $6,000 for two of them, or whatever that was, something
Yeah,
like that. Some
$5,400.
ridiculous amount of money.
One would,
Ooh, those are for two new ones for departments.
Yeah, we got
I-
6 for,
But they're different and they're
Oh.
more high-tech for like going out in the field.
oh,
oh, I
And they
see.
have,
it says
you know, you
has
can take it
covered.
with you and just
oh,
kind
yeah,
of.
yeah, yeah.
It said 2.
It says Rockefeller and Vivo.
And there was,
Peter has one too.
Yeah,
yeah, but we didn't have the bill.
And then it says one for.
that one
Vivo.
should be the one that was
There
replacing
was a
mine
Nominate
because it was.
too, that was on there.
Yeah, but that was a different number too.
It'd be
That was
$6,700
$1,350.
Right.
But the ones I know of are
Well, that, I
more
didn't have
advanced and
warrants, so
they're
I'm just saying
a
that's
lot
what caught
more-
my attention on
Right.
it, that's all.
Yeah.
And that's kinda pricey for a laptop, you just shuffling around there, I don't know, seems to me, that's,
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to approve consent agenda. Any objection to calling the vote? All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed, same sign. With that, the consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to new business. First item, resolution to reduce the Economic Development Authority Board membership from 11 to 9. And I'll just give you a little background on this. Last March, the EDA voted unanimously to approve their new bylaws, which includes the language that the EDA board shall consist of the township supervisor and 8 or 10 other members. And then in April, this board unanimously approved those same bylaws. And so both EDA and this board have already set those as essentially the two numbers that we can have as far as membership, 9 and 11. Back in the summer, the chair of the EDA casually broached the idea of going to 9 members. And then last month, he brought it up, I have to say informally, because we weren't officially in a meeting, because we didn't have a quorum. And there was, at least from a few that were there, some general consensus that might be a good thing. So I called Mr. Keequam, he's the chair of the EDA, the next day. In fact, I've talked to him several times, and I talked to him again on Monday. He reiterated the need to make the board more efficient by reducing membership. So part of his thought process in bringing this up and recommending this was that it reduces doesn't reduce, it increases responsibility for attendance. His feeling was that with 11 members on the board, sometimes you go, the other ones will show up, I don't have to. And speaking to that as well, you'll notice the letter that was sent out by the chair, speaking to that exactly, because the bylaws, as mentioned earlier in the meeting, do have an attendance policy. And so those individuals that have been not meeting that have been in discussions with the chair, and at this point, we've had positive feedback from those that were approached and appreciative that they, I hate to say, called out, for lack of a better term. The other item was that chair felt that debate happens better with 9 people and 11. That was just a lot of voices to manage, and felt we could be more efficient in the work that we do. And those are why he kind of listed his reasonings for wanting to go to 9. As vice chair, I'll second that. I also support that. If we were to make this change, the only person or member that this would affect currently is Mr. Chowdhury, whose term has expired. And like I said, you all read the letter from the chair regarding attendance, so. Do you have anything to add to this, manager?
I do not.
Abby. happy to open up discussion or motion.
I talked to Tom a couple of times in the last 2 weeks, and we had a good discussion last Friday about it. I feel comfortable going to 9. He said that when he first got on the EDA board, that it was a 9-member board, and that it got increased in 2012 to 11 members. So he said that he's comfortable with 9. And then I talked to a couple of the people on that EDA board, and just told me their reasons why they've missed so many meetings. And then I said, well, you should probably talk to Tom too, so.
So, I'm sorry, you finished, sir?
Yeah,
Okay, so these people that are missing meetings and really, more than they should, are they on probation, or are they gonna be released, or what's gonna happen?
I can't speak for the chair and what the ED may recommend, because they can recommend that we essentially remove them. The Board of Trustees has that power. Am I getting that correctly? Okay. My understanding is that this is kind of a first warning, and if you can't change your behavior, then we need to consider replacement. And so, I mean, the reality is we may be in a position where, as there were 3 that were singled out, names aren't important.
Right.
But of those 3, it's possible that we may have to replace 1 or 2 or 3. I do know I've spoken with 2 of them, and both have pledged, two of the ones I spoke to pledged to make attendance a priority. So I think the letter had its intended effect. But we'll see.
Yeah.
And the other, it wasn't as much of an issue for much of pandemic, because some of these people are snowbirds, and that's part of the problem we have, right, is they're not even within the state. And when we were doing virtual meetings, they would be connecting from Florida and making me jealous, of course, but that made it much easier. So I hope our state legislature seriously would consider at least allowing volunteer boards the option to do a hybrid type meeting. There's my 2 cents, but. What? Any other discussion?
Yeah. I guess I would like to hear from the EDA board as a whole what their recommendation is. Now, Bill's talked to a few people, and you have, and I believe everything that you've said. But it sounds like there's just been a lot of phone conversations, and that I have no issue with going from 11 to 9, but I personally would feel better knowing that I prefer that the board, if they can, handle their own business and then request us to make the resolution, rather than just doing it without the discussion of the EDA. It's just my thought.
And I get that, but I think we have that both through the bylaws. It was unanimous vote by the EDA board that 9 or 11 works. And when their chair is making that recommendation, he speaks on behalf of the EDA. So I hear what you're saying, but I think we're hearing from the EDA that that is where they want to be. You're right, it's not every individual member having specific voice on this particular time on this issue. But they did all vote for 9 before, 9 and 11, 9 or 11.
This at the,
In March 16th. April 21, thank you.
That's when the Board of Trustees also approved the bylaws.
Yeah, so we, not only did the EDA approve the 9 or 11, but this board did as well last year. And so I kind of felt that they've spoken on that issue.
I do too.
Clerk Cody,
Can I make a motion now?
feel free.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to reduce the Economic Development Authority Board membership from 11 to 9 members.
Support.
Motion by Cody, support by Bills. I know we've had some discussion. Happy to entertain more if there's desire.
All I know is it's hard to get people. Rick Byers and I, is it okay if I say that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Rick Byers and I talked a month ago, and he said, who have you talked to for EDA board? he had just done having lunch with his wife, and he said, well, I haven't got anything to do right now. He said, I'm gonna ride around and talk to these people too. So I gave him a list of 4 people, and he drove around and talked to them. He got out of those little meetings, and he called me up and said, well, you're right, this one doesn't want to do it. And they were people that, you know, businesses along Pickard, individuals. I mean, I tried to get a farmer on it, someone from agriculture, and I know I tried 5 or 6 people, and I couldn't get anybody to commit to it.
I've had a lot of those, I'm sorry, were you done?
I-
I've had a lot of those same conversations. I did, I think I spoke to Mr. Bars the same day that you did, too.
Yeah, he called me, yeah, him and
yeah.
I, yeah.
And, you know, the other challenge that the EDA faces is, with the exception of one seat, they all have to come from residents or business owners within the district. And that really limits our pool. So that makes it even, just that alone makes it our hardest board to recruit for. Personally, I really enjoy the EDA. I think it's fun to serve on. And I've tried to use that as a selling pitch, and apparently I've failed too, so. Anyways, any further discussion?
I do, so.
Sure.
Based on your discussion, your previous discussions, you don't feel that if we go ahead and make this resolution, that it will not cause any unnecessary issues?
If I did, I wouldn't recommend that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I can't foresee the future, but if I had any
Well,
feeling of that, yeah, I would.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Motion is to approve the resolution in your packet to move the EDA membership from 11 to 9. Clerk Cody, would you give us a roll call vote on that, please?
Supervisor Melky?
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Trustee Bills?
Yes.
Trustee Hope?
Yes,
Trustee Thering?
Yes.
All yeses.
Thank you, Clerk. At this point, we may be revisiting item B. We'll see. I'm not forgetting anything. Yeah, that was just for EDA. So item B is not really needed in our agenda at this point. But if we end up having to fill some seats, we'll come back to that. So that brings us to item C on our agenda, Isabella County Road Commission participation contract, Lincoln Road, Broomfield intersection to bridge. Manager, would you like to introduce this?
Yes, thank you, and good evening, everybody. Before you tonight, for consideration is the approval of a participation agreement between Union Township and Isabella County Road Commission regarding the reconstruction of Lincoln Road from the Chippewa River Bridge south to and including the Broomfield Road intersection in the amount of $466,846. This recommendation also includes the work to pave the shoulders at a width of 4 to 5 feet, and also to authorize the township manager to sign any requisite documents. There's paperwork in your packet that begins on page 35. This project was originally designed and scoped back in 2018. At that time, and since that time, the design involved 5 lanes on the east and north legs of Broomfield Road intersection, 3 lanes on the south and west legs of the intersection, storm sewer work, installation of a traffic signal at the intersection, and the construction of a Class A road. At that time, it was actually in June of 2018, the Board of Trustees approved a participation agreement in support of that project at the time in the amount of $166,700. If this participation that's before you tonight is approved, the one that you approved back in 2018 would become null and void. Due to some increased construction costs, the inability to acquire all necessary easements, the loss of some state funding, and the risk of loss of additional state funding, the administration of both the Road Commission and the Union Township administration met to discuss what to do. And we asked that so we basically had a discussion about redesign options to help lower the cost. Those discussions produced a redesign that we've seen in a schematic form that has 3 lanes on the north, south, east, and west legs of Broomfield Road instead of 5. Still contains the curb and gutter work. Storm sewer work remains the same. The redesign removes the traffic signal at the intersection. It would still remain a 4-way stop as it is today. And as I indicated a couple minutes ago, there would be wider paved shoulders than we're used to seeing in the 4-foot to 5-foot range to the right of the white line. This new design, including the paved shoulders, would total $2,118,000 and some change. There is some existing funding. MDOT State Category F funding of $375,000. State funding that is often referred to as Roger Houck's funding of $600,000. Union Township has $167,000 currently budgeted in this fiscal year in support of the participation agreement that's been on the books since 2018. The West EDA has committed funding of $330,000 also as a result of participation agreements that were executed back in 2018. And the Road Commission has existing funding appropriated in the amount of $167,000. You add all that up, it's $1,639,000. The redesign cost being $2,118,000 and some change, leaves a hole of $479,000 and some change. And so through these discussions, the Road Commission has indicated that they would provide additional funding of $179,000, leaving Union Township a requirement, if we move forward, to fund $300,000 and some change. And that is $120,000 or so for the paved shoulders. Union Township would be paying 100% of that. And then $179,000 of the hole in the project, less the paved shoulders. And so you get rid of the old participation agreement, which already has on the hook for $167,000. We have a new participation agreement in front of us tonight in the amount of $466,846. That's essentially the $166 that we already have appropriated, plus the $300,000 that I just mentioned. The 2022, I just said that, the 2022 budget already has appropriated $167,000. So there would be a shortfall in, from a budgetary perspective, of approximately $300,000. And if approved, we would be coming back to you at a later date to approve a budget amendment for this project. And we typically do budget amendments around mid-year. So that's where we are today. The Road Commission has asked that the Board of Trustees consider funding commitments so that they can go out and do the formal design work. They didn't want to spend any additional money on that until they knew they had a funding partner. And there are constraints at the back end come the fall of 2022. There's a risk of loss of funding if not spent in its entirety of, I want to say, $300,000, $375,000. I'm sorry, I'm going to get these mixed up. The $375,000 has to be committed by year end. The $600,000 has to be spent, and not by year end, by the end of September.
Right.
The $300,000 has to be spent, which is more than being committed, by the same time frame, end of September. And so we're asked to approve this tonight. That would free up the Road Commission to go out and begin work to formally design the new scope, and then allow them time to put their bid documents together, put that on the street for bid, and have construction started and completed by approximately the end of September. So that is where we're at. This is all the result of the board, I think, taking some initiative and trying to get an update on where this project was back in the fall of 2021. That prompted some questions that were submitted to the Road Commission. They've responded to those in writing. You've seen those. And then that prompted then 2 meetings at the administrative level to try to figure out what to do next. And that what to do next is the recommendation in the description that I've just provided the board. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I'd like to
So-
make a motion. Okay.
I want to give an opportunity for people to ask our manager questions. I mean, if through debate process, we have additional questions that need to be directed to the manager, we'll invite him to answer those. But this is a good opportunity now to ask any of those questions based on the presentation you just heard.
Manager, from my recollection of our general fund, I think we have the room to be able to afford this. Is that correct?
We do. We have,
So maybe I don't misspeak.
we have a healthy fund balance, for one. That is essentially, that would be likely where the money would come from. Projected 2022 year-end fund balance of $4.6 million, which is 2 to 3 years of annual operating expenses. And then, of course, we also have, and this would be an allowable expense, we're also currently sitting on $700,000 of ARPA funding, with another approximately $700,000 to be received in a year from now. And to the point of affordability, the administration's plan and intent, and we will do it, is we will be approaching the West DDA and ask them to up their contribution, which will help reduce our contribution. And in conjunction with the Road Commission, we're also, the two entities are going to make a application for 2% funding at the spring period to also help reduce the, I'll call it the 300,000 additional money that as of tonight is being asked for you to commit to. So it is my intent and my expectation that that money will be reduced. I can't say by how much. So directly to your question, we do have sufficient funds. If none of that came true, and my expectation is that we will backfill the commitment we're making tonight with these other 2% sources and approaching the West DDA.
Thank you.
Other questions? So, I know I have one. So with regards, you spoke of staff getting together and essentially trying to identify the scope of what we have in front of us now. And part of that was reducing costs, because obviously with the funds of the original plan, this project of this, the cost of this project, excuse me, essentially exploded. And with the loss of some funding, I mean, because originally I believe it was a 5-lane with 8-foot shoulders, curb and gutter, Class A drainage. At least that's what they gave us for the original plan. With that, in negotiations to identify this new scope, was it entertained at all about looking at a 2-lane instead of a 3-lane with all the other bells and whistles, the Class A, the drainage, the curb and gutter, to help offset that cash shortfall and to help save the township and the county road commission money? Was that ever in discussion?
That was not specifically discussed, and it was not brought up directly or indirectly by the township in terms of asking them to look at a third design of 2 lanes. They did not bring it up, so the answer to that is no, it is not. There are, I think, some, I'll call them reasons why it may not have appeared or popped into our minds on the administrative side. And that primarily would have to do with safety. By maintaining a middle lane, you are giving room for vehicles to move over when there's a bicyclist or a pedestrian going down the shoulder. We've provided for wider shoulders. That helps with safety. By keeping the middle lane, you also have some place for vehicular traffic to go, because by rule, and probably by law, I guess is a better word, vehicles are supposed to move over, and this gives them a place to move over. Whether or not that is enough to, offset what a 2-lane may cost, I don't know.
I was more
But-
curiosity,
Yeah.
just
No,
because
no,
of the
I know.
cash shortfall.
But, so, the direct answer is no, it was not. And then this other business that I just laid out there was, I think, a contributing factor, at least to me, to, I didn't even think about asking for a 2-lane design.
So the original plan, one that they gave us a few weeks ago, showed 8-foot shoulders, which they were a funding partner on. Did they explain why they did not want to contribute to the funding on the 4-foot that's being proposed as an optional, currently as us paying all of it?
I don't recall the 8-foot shoulder. I don't know that,
I could have misread the engineering designs, but it, at least what I saw today, said 8-foot shoulder. And I was surprised by that.
I know there was some deceleration lanes and such, but
I don't know if I ever heard anything about 8-foot
8
shoulders.
foot seems excessive.
Shoulder.
Yeah, so this is, it's not in our packet because we were given this separately, but this is 8-foot shoulder. Which I was surprised. The real question isn't about the 8 and the 4. I was kind of curious, since they were going to be a funding partner on the original shoulder work, did they give a reason why that they didn't want to contribute and cost share in that?
When I was at one of the two meetings, the question was asked at the first meeting. The answer was no, we mostly do roads. And we had, a spirited discussion about the need for shoulders and the township's board's desire to be having more shoulder. And then during the second meeting, the question was asked again. And the answer was the same. And I don't believe there was a reason given beyond we focus on roads. And we pushed back again a little bit on that spirited discussion. And it was time to move on.
Okay. I mean, they're seeing additional costs too, and so I thought some of the reasoning might be, and I'm speculating.
Yeah,
that
I cannot answer that.
they're kicking more in, and therefore something's got to give. But I didn't know if there was another reason.
I think that would have to be directed directly to a member of the road
I did talk.
commission or administration.
Yeah, and I did talk to the chair of the road commission this week, and I hadn't thought of that question at that time, so that's on me. Other questions? I have comments, but I'll wait till debate.
Yeah, make the comment.
If there's any motions to be made.
I'll make a motion to approve the township participation contract with the Isabella County Road Commission for the reconstruction of Lincoln Road from the Chippewa River Bridge south to and including the Broomfield Road intersection in the amount of $466,846, including paved shoulders, and to authorize the township manager to sign said contract.
Support.
Motion by Hauk, support by Bills. Discussion.
They need to get this thing going if we're gonna do it, because at their last meeting, they were talking about, everybody knows everybody's busy in construction. I don't know who the guy was, when they're in their meetings, they'll say like James, well, James might be the road commission manager of Gratiot County, or, Brian, well, I don't know who these guys are. But anyways, he said something like, just say James, they had a job out to bid, they only got one bidder. So,
This needs to be done. This road's been needing to be upgraded for decades, and if it's not done now, we're gonna lose a lot of money. We need to get this done right now. That's where I'm at right now.
Clerk Cody, you had your hand?
I think this is a really important project. The only concern I have is having a turn lane at a four-way stop. Because you got all them cars coming up at the same time, everybody's just gonna sit and stare at each other, and then it's just gonna be a mess. I think, that's my opinion, but very important. I think there should be a light there.
They do it all over the place in Midland. I
Oh.
think it's, there's four-way stops everywhere in Midland with turn lanes. I think, that's easy to, just like people trying to go
To
overcome
get
a traffic
used to
circle.
for people.
Trustee
I'm
Therian?
sure if.
Like the roundabouts,
Yeah, that's
everybody
what I'm
needs to get
saying.
used to.
Yeah,
Trustee Therian, do you have?
No, I'm very comfortable with moving forward.
All right, I had to take you on a little journey. First and foremost, I'll start by saying that I agree with your comments. This road needs repair, it needs infrastructure. Many of the things that are in the plan, I'm in full support of. I agree with your comments, the four-way stop with, what is that, 8 lanes? No, 8 oncoming lanes? Might get a little weird, but good comment about Midland. But I've gone through this journey this past week. I can't tell you the number of hours I've spent thinking about this because of its importance. And as I looked, I'm glad we're at least where we are now versus where we were, say, a year ago or 2 years ago. If you looked at the original scope, the plans that they gave us, five lane, 8-foot shoulders, at least in the one drawing, traffic light, et cetera, et cetera. And yet, when you look at the north side, Remus, Lincoln, which I would consider heavier traffic there, they're happy with 3. And so I couldn't for the life of me figure out why 5. And, because all I knew about the project, because the previous board that I was not involved in approved this, and I just didn't understand, where did 5 come from? That just seems like overkill. And so as we began this journey, asking the questions of the road commission, finding out it's been scaled back, that brought some comfort to me. And based on that traffic study, I don't know if you spent time with that traffic study, but that traffic study was August 2013, and it showed that there was a 1.49, I think it was, 1.49% population growth assumed based on projections. And so for 20 years, up until 2023, if we use that 1.49% population growth, we should see this increase in traffic. And with that, I have to read this, with that 20-year expected growth, in 20 years, the traffic volumes at this intersection will need to be upgraded and possibly a signal installed. So even with the projected growth, I never quite understood why a signal. Plus, I drive it all the time. I never wait there. But obviously, we didn't see that growth. And so, again, I'm glad that we're looking at a 3-lane project instead of 5, which is also why I began to ask about 2-lane, thinking of cutting costs. So I still have questions about the original scope, but that's behind us, so I'm not going to ask them. And I truly believe that had we not, as a board, initiated the discussion with the road commission, we'd be in a very different place today. And I'm really glad and thankful for all of you to take that initiative and get the discussion started. Because now, here we are, having the possibility of getting this done. As mentioned, I did speak with the County Road Commission Chair on Monday. He actually called me. I was busy. It was an intergovernmental meeting, but I called him back. And I just want to thank him publicly for his call. He offered to ask any questions I might have. The only question I asked was one that was posed to me. Can I use your name, Trustee Thering? Was by Trustee Thering on a conversation he and I had, and I really appreciated the question. And the question was, 4 foot doesn't seem very safe as a shoulder for pedestrians or bike traffic. What if we put both shoulders on one side and had 8-foot shoulder properly marked as a bike lane? Is that possible? And so I posed that question to the chair, and he said, that's an interesting question. I hadn't thought of that. He says, it's actually very reasonable to ask that. He said, the only thing I don't know, because he's one of us, a layperson, right? Said, I don't know the engineering ramifications of that, nor do I know easement-wise how that'll come into play. But I appreciate the question. It was a good discussion. Anyways, I wanted to publicly thank the chair of the road commission for reaching out to me. Just checking my notes here. If we don't do a shoulder, I guess this is a question for one of our staff if they're able to answer it. If we don't do a shoulder, my assumption is that the gutters would be tight against the road. And part of the reason for doing this road upgrade, Class A, is because of heavy trucks. And if heavy trucks are making right-hand turns, a tight turn in other words, aren't those trucks gonna beat up those curbs? And so another advantage of having that shoulder is to protect it protect those curbs? Is that reasonable?
I think it's reasonable, but a technical answer would be, I think, required of the professionals in the field, which are not here tonight.
Right. But to me, shoulders, I mean, we've talked about it, there seems to be consensus how important that is to our community. We heard it from those that came to our last meeting and spoke about being able to walk or bike that path. And I'm, too, supportive of that, absolutely. My one concern is, as the design is now, we will be going from a 3-lane at the intersection of Lincoln and Broomfield down to a 2-lane because we can't get easements on 2 private properties, back to a 3-lane crossing the bridge, and then post-construction of this project, prior to anything being done in the north, go back down to 2-lane, back to 3-lane. And I think when we go by those easements, based on the questions I've asked, there's not gonna be room for shoulder there. And so I asked the question, and even though I'm very supportive of the shoulders, does it make sense to have shoulders that just end? And I don't know how long that front footage is of those 2 properties, but I'm gonna guess 100 to 200 feet, I'm guessing. But I wanted everybody here to be aware that those shoulders would terminate and then reopen again to cross the bridge.
Can we talk back yet, or you can?
Yes,
Okay.
please, yep.
All right, well, I'd like to say that, yes, I read the traffic study. I didn't believe it. I've been a resident here all my life. I didn't think any chance that we would have that kind of growth and need a light at that intersection. I still don't. The other thing is, I don't think professional truck drivers are gonna beat up a curb. I never see them beating up curbs. I see them calculating how far they need to turn and doing the right thing. So there's that. And then the state of Michigan law is that bicyclists need 3 feet of space. I think the shoulder is wide enough, and I think it should be on both sides. People need a place to be able to pull over if they break down. And then for your other point, your most recent point, I would like to say that as an avid cyclist, even if you don't have a shoulder the whole way, it's nice to be able to calculate the traffic and be able to run out there in that little space that you don't have and then get back to a shoulder. So I totally think that's an important thing. As much as we can get, the shoulder we need.
And I'm in full agreement. I wanted everybody here to understand this is the end result, that we're gonna have if we do shoulders, we would have shoulders down to non-shoulders, back to shoulders. But I'm in agreement with your comments on that. Absolutely, because I would be the same way. I've seen non-motorized traffic take advantage of when it's there and wait for safety when it's not.
And I think we had a lot of residents here saying, hey, I'm a runner, I need that shoulder, we need to do that. So, I mean, I think everybody's for it.
Another question I had posed, and I mentioned it here tonight, was what if it's 2-lane? Does that save us enough money that the road commission and the township don't have to find more? And I asked, why 3 versus 2? And the response actually was pleasing to me, and I agreed with it. And our manager mentioned to it, a point to it. And that is, with the 3-lane, the safety aspect is there. And with the shoulders, again, safety. And so I was convinced then that the 3-lane made sense to me. But I wanted to ask the question, how much does it save to go down to 2? But I don't have that answer, so. In any event, I'm in support of this. I wished maybe some of this discussion had started 6 months ago instead of at the 11th hour. So thank you for at least getting the discussion started with the road commission. Other comments? Clerk Cody.
Before we're done or call our vote, I did want to thank the manager for finding or looking for other ways to find the money too, like
Yes.
thinking about 2% grants and things like that. So thank you.
And I'd
Yes.
also like to acknowledge the Public Service Director, Kim Smith, for all the work she's done on this, and also Sherry Teal. Thank you very much.
With all the money that's out there for infrastructure, is there a possibility we may be able to go after grants, additional grants for this? Is that a possibility?
I thought the road commission.
Not the township.
Well-
The township would be limited, I think, on the grant opportunities because of our lack of authority over the roads. And I don't know what would exist for the road commission.
I mean, was curious if they might pursue some of those, because they're also putting up additional cash in this agreement, so.
Right.
Other questions? Okay, so the motion, it was a little while ago, thanks for entertaining me and listening to me. The motion on the floor was to approve the resolution for us with the road commission. Is that a correct interpretation?
The contract,
And it was, I'm sorry, clerk?
the contract.
Contract, okay.
Participation.
Participation contract.
Agreement.
Without objection, be happy to do a roll call vote on this. I'm looking to see if there's additional comments. Clerk Cody?
Supervisor Melky,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Trustee Bills,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
all yeses. Oh, did I say yes? Clerk Cody, yes.
And thank you. Was that unanimous?
Yes.
I have to apologize. We skipped item B, and we actually have Mr. David Coyne reapplying for us a spot on the EDA that's expiring March 26th. So if the board is okay with going back to that, that was my error in jumping over that. Are there objections to doing that?
Nope.
So we have an application from Mr. Coyne, his term ending March 26th. He's reapplied for that spot. I can speak to Mr. Coyne, and his contribution is a very positive one. I enjoy his perspective. I think he brings a lot to that board.
I support your nomination.
Well, I'm not nominating, yeah, I am. I will nominate Mr. Dave Coyne to the EDA with the term expiring March 26, 2026.
Support.
Motion to appoint Dave Coyne by Milky, support by Bills. Further discussion? Clerk Cody, would you give us a roll call on the motion to appoint Mr. Coyne?
Supervisor Melky,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Trustee Bills,
Yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
all yeses.
Thank you all for dealing with my mistake. With that moves us to extended public comment, item 12 on our agenda. Extended public comment is restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue. Note, if you choose to approach the public and/or board, please state your name and address for the record. And with that, we'll open up extended public comment at 8:17 PM.
Yeah, Frank Engler, 1798 West River Road. I know I wasn't going to say anything, but 2 items real quick. The extended shoulder, one thing, it's a big safety issue for the farms. As you know, the farms have gotten bigger. Getting bigger, we have to travel farther, so 15, 20 years ago, you might go 4 or 5 miles. Now, it's not unusual to go 15, 20 miles, so, of course, the equipment's bigger and the traffic backup, and when you're moving that big equipment, it's really kind of scary at some points when people are trying to pass you and everything. So, yeah, we do appreciate the larger. We're not going to go down Mission, so with their equipment. So that's not going to be it. The second point I want to bring up, I want to congratulate the board. I personally have been trying to recruit Mr. Gross for several positions for years now. And my point is, you got a good one, and Paul's going to do a great job for you. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank
comments.
you.
Anyone else like to come forward? See no one coming forward, we'll close extended public comment at 8:19 PM. With that brings us to item 13 on our agenda, manager's comments. Mr. Stuhldreher, you have the floor.
Thank you, and I have 3, 2 of which are pretty short. First, I'd like to thank Sherry Teal, Finance Director, for covering and keeping an eye on the township last week while I was out of town. Did a good job, and I appreciate that effort and the work that she did there. Second of all, we have a schedule now for the 9th annual cleanup day set. That'll be Saturday, October 1st. It's a non-football Saturday, and
Not football here, or what about Michigan State?
I don't know about it. No football here, and it will be at the Commission on Aging where it's been the last couple years. And then the last item, if you bear with me just a second, and this is kind of a heads up to let you know what's going to be coming forward. And we touched on it, I believe maybe the supervisor touched on it earlier in the meeting. But this has to do with trying to get a pathway north from Pickard up to River Road on Crawford and around through in front of Mission Creek Park. And yes, it was indicated that the city is working on trying to get all their parks connected, and then that includes connecting to Mission Creek, north of Pickard on Crawford/Harrison. You have township-owned property or township corporate limits, then you have city corporate limits, then you're back to township. And the city is in the process of designing a pathway from Pickard and through prior discussions and up to the Mission Creek Park and on up to River Road. So that design is being done as we speak. And that is anticipated to be completed in time for a DNR grant application that the city's going to put in, due date of which is April 1st, for $300,000. So they're submitting a grant application to the DNR to help fund this pathway. They're doing the design work now. I believe in our budget, we had allocated $9,000 in support of the design work. What is going to, I hope, come in front of this board on March 23rd is a resolution, what I'm calling right now a resolution of intent, that will go with the DNR grant application to give that support.
Yes.
And that resolution of intent, and it's just a resolution of intent, is to fund the township share of the pathway in an amount not to exceed $375,000. Okay? And it would be subject to the normal disclaimers, subject to annual appropriation, condition on the city being awarded a grant from the DNR, those kinds of things. And so the way this is starting to line up is a 2023, because the grant awards would be in the fall of 2022. So during the construction season of 2023, we'd be constructing and hopefully completing the pathway from Pickard on the east side of Harrison/Crawford, north past the Mission Creek and on up to River Road. At this point, the estimates are that's a $1,200,000 project, construction project. The city's budgeted $525,000 in their capital plan for 2023. We'd have $300,000 of the DNR grant, and then $375,000 from the township. And so I wanted to give you a heads up so you can begin to think about that, as things often are, just like the item that was before us earlier tonight. There's a little bit of time crunch, but I know the board is very interested in actually getting concrete laid and getting these pathways actually put in. And I think this is a good way to do it. I know it's not only sounds like a lot of money, but it is a lot of money. But pathways and sidewalks aren't free. And so that you can anticipate that coming before you at your March meeting. Thank you.
So I began having this conversation with tribal members and administration, for lack of a better term, about a year ago. And again, as I mentioned earlier, at the last 2% roundtable. And there does seem to be some broad support. I'll paraphrase maybe the comments given, which is, we'd like to partner in that type of stuff. So I'm assuming your thought process would be to potentially include them in this ultimately.
Yes, and I failed to mention that. It is township manager and the city manager's intent to submit a fall 2% grant, joint 2% application to help fund a portion, maybe all, you can probably ask for all, of the city's $525,000 share and our $375,000 share.
It's exciting to me.
I think it's really exciting. But my discussions began with the prior city manager, and then there was the turnover, and then we had some discussions additional discussions at the staff level, meeting with the city's Parks and Rec director. And then today, I met with the city manager, and this is kind of what we mapped out. So,
I think it's awesome, and I'd like to, commend the city. I mean, when we looked at that, we got that report on their master plan a while ago, and it just is amazing. I'm so excited about this project.
Yeah, me too. And for the public, I guess, if you look at the big picture of this, what the city's plan is to connect all their parks now, and that includes in the south side. And one of the things that we're proposing with one of our 2% applications is helping connect those pathways on the south side of campus. But with what's in the city's plan and what our manager was speaking to, and if we're able to do that Denison portion, you would be able to bike from Shepherd all the way to the north side of Union Township.
And that stimulates tourism and growth, period. I mean, I drive all the way to Traverse City just to ride the TART trail. And I mean, people do. That's what happens. Bikers do that. And joggers and everybody else, they want to see good trails. They want to live in places that have good trails.
It's interesting you mentioned the turnover on the city administrator, because I began that discussion with the mayor just about a year ago, and then there was a turnover with the mayor because the previous mayor had gotten a job in another community. And so I started with the new mayor, but yeah, yay. Any other questions for our manager? With that, takes.
That's all I have.
Yeah, thank you. With that takes us to final board member comment. I started with Trustee Hauk for the other sections, so let's start with Trustee Bills.
Okay, I've mentioned it before, so I went ahead and had a discussion with Doreen Lilly, who runs the food pantry in the Strickler Center. And I had a pretty detailed discussion and got some numbers from her. They have been under tremendous strain to feed the hungry for the last 2 years, above and beyond what they normally do. And they're feeding 1,000 families now. 1,000 families, and they're dealing with a lot of infants, which they have to supply diapers for, formula for, they've had a lot of financial stress and they've had to hire somebody just to answer the phone part-time because there's so much volume. And I know that I already made a request to you guys to consider some ARPA money to help them because their extra support from the Greater Lansing Food Bank is going to dry up in May. That's been pandemic related. And I think we should at least try to get them, 5 figures of money. I think, we have a lot of support from the state or the federal government on ARPA, and this is something we could use. It's COVID related. I'm thinking, something in the ballpark $10,000. I mean, their rent alone is $38,000. And they have a lot to do, and they're opening back up, so they'll have that facility open to people. Other than that, spring's coming, the sun's shining, and I'm excited, so that's all I got.
Thank you, Trustee Bills. Trustee Therian?
No comment?
Clerk Cody?
No comment.
Trustee Hauk?
I just have a couple. Mark already talked about, we're gonna go for 2% funds. And I hope, we work in good conjunction with the road commission to make up for some of these funds. I mean, if they tell us to go for a certain amount, I hope we go for that amount and not exceed it. We've done that in the past, and it's hurt us in the past. So I hope we work good together on that one. I'd like to, I keep bringing up a park on the south side. We talked tonight how everything would connect. Well, we've talked about a park on the south side and corner of Deerfield and Mission. So try to find some ways to fund that or see if we can get going on that. I mean, these things don't happen overnight, so we need to get going on that. Then the last thing I just want to say is, we need to support the people in Ukraine. We need to support them with our prayers and then financially. It's a tragedy what's going on over there. I mean, we all go to bed at night knowing that, someone's not gonna bust into our house, or we don't worry about our house getting blown up at night. It's just a tragedy over there, so let's keep them in our thoughts and prayers.
Thank you.
Thank you. I had similar, redone them, sorry. I had similar statements, essentially prayers for those in Eastern Europe. It's easy to take our democracy for granted. And I'm grateful and fortunate, we should all be grateful and fortunate, or feel fortunate that we're not going through what these families are going through. And it kind of puts our trials and tribulations a little bit in perspective. So I really appreciate your words, Trustee Hauk. I have 2 comments. One's a little bit longer, but I've had the opportunity for various reasons to interact with some of the township staff on various things recently. And this is meant in no way to diminish the quality and awesomeness of those that have been at this township for some time. But we've had the opportunity to get to know some of the staff members that have been hired by our manager. And I'm impressed by all the staff. But I also think that that doesn't just happen by accident. And so as I thought about this more, I thought about, I know Mr. Stuhldreher is not a human resources person, but I think you've done a bang-up job getting good people in here, and that speaks highly of you. And I think the fact that they come into here with existing staff and it all gels is credit to the existing staff. So, anyways, the more interaction I've had lately with it, I just had to give compliment.
Thank you, and that flows to these staff members themselves.
Absolutely. Yep. So I'm going to try to channel Norm here for a moment. So there was once this woman who woke up one morning, looked in the mirror, and noticed that she had only 3 hairs on her head. Well, she said, I think I'll braid my hair today. So she did, and she had a wonderful day. The next day, she woke up, looked in the mirror, and saw that she only had 2 hairs on her head. She said, I think I'll part my hair down the middle today. She did, and she had a grand day. The next day, she woke up, looked in the mirror, and noticed that she had only 1 hair on her head. Well, she said, today I'm going to wear my hair in a ponytail. So she did, and she had a fun day. The next day, she woke up, looked in the mirror, and noticed that there wasn't a single hair on her head. Yay, she exclaimed. I don't have to fix my hair today. It's all about attitude. And why I bring that up is I have reflected many times on the answer by Mr. McBride to my question at the end of his presentation. And my question to him was, what bottlenecks do you see in our community to inspire and encourage development? And his response surprised me. Although I liked it, I was surprised by it. His response was attitude. It's all about attitude. And it's really stuck with me. And if we want positive change, and I know we all want that, that's why we're all here, so part of it begins with positive attitude. And all I'm telling you is I'm going to pledge to continue to work on my attitude, because I think through positive attitude comes positive outcomes. And there's reasons to have positive attitude. It results in positive outcomes, but you learn to not give up easily. As challenges come, positivity can give you the strength to continue chasing our goals. Because sometimes we get frustrated because things move slow, or we don't have the money to do something. Persistence and that positive attitude can help us continue that fight. Never give up easily, right? There's that silver lining in the dark cloud that you can see when you're an optimist versus a pessimist. Sometimes we can see the good and the bad, right? Also, that our responses are important. And maybe problems are only problems if we insist on seeing them that way instead of opportunities. And so I just challenge all of us, including myself, to lead by example through positivity. And there's my message for the day. So thanks for entertaining me on that. And with that, I'm complete. I'd be happy to entertain any motions to adjourn.
Oh, I got one more thing.
Absolutely.
I wanted to thank Commissioner Engler for attending tonight. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate your presence.
I move to adjourn.
Support.
Motion by Bill, support by Hauk. I'm guessing no discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion to adjourn passes unanimously. Thank you, board.